Coming up on today's show, BMW's i3 range extender is not extended. There's a recap on the major automakers' EV plans as we head towards the end of this year, and your answers to this week's question of the week, and we'll set a new one as well. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Hello and welcome to EV News Daily. It's Sunday, the 7th of October, 2018. My name is Martyn Lee, and I've been through every EV story today, so you don't have to. Thank you to myev.com. You know they help make this show. Have you checked them out yet? Only in North America. If you want to buy, sell, learn about used cars, it's an experience that I've literally been through today, as we've been talking about buying my wife a used EV to get rid of her diesel Golf, and that happened today. We don't pick it up till next week though, but the deal was done today down at the car dealership. I'll fill you in on those details another time, but check out myev.com in the meantime. Thank you to not one, but two more Patreon supporters. Arild Gear Skalvzin. Oh, I've said your name wrong, haven't I? Arild Gear Skalvzin. Oh. If I need a third attempt at it, or a longer run-up, email me. And hello to Kevin Mayerson, which is somewhat easier for me to say anyway. Kevin and Arild, thank you very much for signing up, joining up, and you are now executive producers of this podcast, and we really couldn't do it without you. I've got a little update on that, by the way, at the end of the show. As usual, though, for Sunday, a quick bit of news, and then over to you for Question of the Week, plus we'll set a brand new question of the week as well, and I really would love you to get involved. If you haven't yet, make this week the first week that you do it. Well, according to Autocar, which is a UK publication, the BMW i3 is now an electric-only model, as the range extender versions have been deleted from the lineup. The range extender, which used to use a two-cylinder 650cc petrol engine to provide some additional charge to the drive battery, has effectively been made redundant by the improved and longer-range pure electric version of the i3 unveiled at this week's Paris Motor Show. The BMW i3's battery has now been boosted to 42.2 kilowatt hours, 120 amp hours from the previous 33 kilowatt hours, 193 miles of range on the WLTP cycle. I always like to take off at the moment about 10 to 15%. And I don't know whether I'm being generous or pessimistic on that, but I think that's probably about right. You know, if you get 150, 160 real-world miles on the motorways and stuff, then you're doing really well out of a battery that size. That is 34 miles more than the older version, and BMW think that's sufficient to negate the need for the range extender. This came from Pete Glass, by the way. Pete, thank you so much, mate. Earlier this week, he was on the UK Facebook group for BMW i3s and tipped me off that this was coming. It started as a rumour before BMW confirmed it, and then the French site as well. By the way, next Saturday, he says, nearly 100 BMW i3 owners and passengers are meeting up at BMW's Academy near Reading. Hello to anyone who listens going to that. Well, Pete chips in with some more detail. As for the range extender, there are technical constraints which could have led to the abandonment of the Rex thermal engine. This is from a forum that he's been on. This is not BMW saying this, by the way. Since 60 amp hours, there's been a weight increase as the batteries have got bigger, of 50 kilograms with the 94 amp hour battery. And then the new 120 amp hour battery is adding another 50 kilos, they say, on this forum. I don't know if this is true or not coming from BMW. So, using that assumption, does it mean that the engine would then make the car too heavy? Or is there problems with passing the new European emissions and things like that? Certainly some people this week saying that it wasn't anything to do with the battery getting bigger, it was to do with BMW needing to sell more pure electric cars, and not having the engines in the back of those cars is going to help. The current version abandoned here in the UK. Now, I've read two conflicting stories about what's happening in North America. Give me another couple of days. I'm going to either ask BMW or try and get some clarification. I've seen some people saying it's going for all markets. Some say that the range extender stays in North America. Leave that one with me. I'll put a link in the show notes to that Autocar article. One of my favourite Canadian friends who I chat to quite a lot on Twitter, actually. He listens to the podcast. He's helped me out with advice and things like that before, even when we were setting things up with the podcast and it was as it was growing. He's been helping out Tesla with the recent delivery events last weekend. As you can imagine, he had to sign an NDA a non-disclosure agreement, and I want to respect that. So I haven't really probed him for too many bits of information, but I did ask him for some details which he was allowed to share, and I thought that you would find interesting. Well, this is somebody who was directly helping out Tesla as one of their fans. He says, considering that they delivered 300 to 400 vehicles over a 1-week period, it was remarkable how smoothly it ran, he says. At one point, I stood amongst 60 Model 3s. And marvelled at how they could actually pull this off. He met several of the local Tesla Owners Club members who answered the call to greet and engage with brand new owners as they arrived at the event to pick up their Model 3s. He says, I got to drive a few Model 3 performances around and some plain old 3s. He says, yeah, like the 3s are plain. And some Model S's and X's as well. Obviously, I won't say his name on the podcast because Tesla were kind enough to extend the invite for him to help out with the new owners. And maybe that just needs to stay private, but thank you very much. You know who you are. And fascinating to hear first-hand experiences of that delivery event. Well, the final story today. Over the weekend, Auto News put a really useful kind of where are we now story online, taking a step back and looking at 13 of the current car makers in the world and their plans for electrification and how they're going. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes for you to have a look at if you want to. In summary, when I was reading that, BMW, the gist of BMW was that next year they expand their full electric lineup past the i3 with the iX3, the SUV version of the X3. Daimler, Mercedes-Benz are launching the EQC in 2019. As for the Smart brand, that is going all electric. When they talked about Fiat Chrysler, well, just one on sale, the Fiat 500e compliance car. No pure electrics for them before 2020. No full electric Alfa Romeo on the roadmap. Jeep is not going to have a full electric here in Europe. As for Ford, again, only one compliance car on sale that sells in the very low hundreds if you're lucky, here where I'm recording the podcast. The Focus EV, which they actively... I don't think they actively sell. I was about to say they actively don't sell it, but maybe they do. But I've not seen any advertisements for it myself. Full electric SUV from 2020. For Ford. As for Honda, that little urban EV concept that we saw at the motor show earlier this year, that is going into production to be on sale in 2020. Jaguar Land Rover, well, that's one of the great examples of this year. The I-Pace is a cracking car, and all cars from 2020 will have some form of electrification. Jaguar Land Rover ahead of most others, by the way. Plug-ins of the Range Rovers are already being launched. They're bringing down those emissions figures. They're helping people drive on electric for 20 or 30 miles before the fossil kicks in, and Jaguar Land Rover have already got their act together. They've got their own other problems, by the way, to do with things like supply chains and construction of their cars, what with Great Britain wanting to leave the European Union. As you can imagine, there's thousands, tens of thousands of bits that go into a car. They all arrive from around the world, and particularly around Europe. And if we're no longer part of that kind of free trade thing, then you can't blame them for saying, well, we're going to make them not in the UK, which is heartbreaking for jobs. It's a really serious issue. It's in the news a lot at the moment as well. But why would you, as a business, intentionally lose money? I mean, they're just not emotionally connected. It's the profit and loss, isn't it? Rather than saying, well, we're going to stay and make them in the UK, but it'll cost us more money, or we can put it somewhere that's in this free trade zone and all the bits can arrive on lorries and all that kind of stuff just in time, with this just-in-time logistics and all those kind of things. You want to store parts at your factory if you don't have to, so they rely on parts arriving just as they need them. It's an enormously complex supply chain, and it's just unbelievable to think that even a slight delay at the border that we're going to have with Europe, holding a lorry up for half a day just stops a factory. So there's all sorts of things going on with Jaguar Land Rover, and you feel for them. It's not a problem that they wanted to have to deal with. Mazda, nothing's on sale for now with Mazda. They are pretty excited, though, to use their Wankel engine as a Rex on the day that BMW stopped using their range extender. Good to know, though, that at Mazda, a bunch of Wankels engines. Nissan, the Leaf, of course, is the world's best-selling EV, but the Model 3 is chasing that one down. Over 300,000 Leafs sold in the world. The 60 kilowatt-hour Leaf is coming soon. Plans as well for more e-power. And the more I think about this, the more it really annoys me. The e-power is not an EV. It gets called an EV because of a technical loophole, but it has no plug. So if you simply can't move the car forwards, without putting fossil fuels in, you can't call it an EV. Okay, so you put fossil fuels in, and that runs an engine which runs a generator, and the electric motor drives the wheels, so the fossil never drives the wheels. But still, if there's no plug, it's not an EV. You can do clever things with batteries, don't get me wrong, with regen and all that kind of stuff. It's not an EV. PSA Group are sitting it out for now. They plan to be a fast follower. They plan to let everybody else take the lead and then catch up quickly. Full electric Peugeot 208, over a year away. Renault recently lost the crown of the Zoe, being Europe's #1 EV. They lost out to the Leaf. The new Zoe's coming soon, though. That's not an official announcement, but I think it's pretty common knowledge that maybe Motor Show early next year, would that be Geneva? There'll be some sort of announcement or some sort of reveal, perhaps even announcement before then, with the brand new Zoe. Whether it is an iteration, an update, or a whole new design, still called the Zoe, we'll have to wait and see. But as for now, a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack in a small city car takes you a long, long way. Oh, yes, and we bought one today. Well, the Volkswagen Roadmap E plans to have 25 full electric cars by 2020. They got a lot to make, by the way, with all their brands underneath them. Audi e-tron Quattro was launched recently. The little stubby little mirrors, instead of wing mirrors, they're little cameras. The Seat brand's got plans for full electric by 2020. Skoda going to use the city car mini car as their first dipping their toe in the water of EVs based on the VW E-Up, and a tiny range on that. And Volvo, finally, half of all sales will be fully electric by 2025. The Polestar 1 plug-in hybrid is the mother of all plug-in hybrids, almost 100 miles on the battery alone. That's before the fossil kicks in, and that's going to be a brutal car to drive as well. Very, very powerful. I'll put a link to that article in the show notes. It's a long one, but it does kind of summarise where all the car makers are up to at the moment. Notice a certain electric car maker beginning with the letter T missing from that list. I did say on Twitter today how weird that they wouldn't put it in there, because when you put in what they've achieved and what's coming, Model Y, semi-truck, new Roadster, it would put all of the others into perspective. And then somebody on Twitter today said, actually, why would you put them in? Because they're there already. Well, they're somewhere, and they are where they are, but I would include them in the list. If you're going to put 13 car makers, put 14, and put the one that all the others are going to be judged against. But just my opinion, I try to be relatively agnostic in terms of support for one manufacturer over another, even though inevitably, when talking about Tesla, you have to be, you have to admire what they're doing. So I often come across as a mini fanboy with Tesla, but I try not to too much. On to our question of the week. Thank you very much to everybody who's answered this week's question of the week. It was a simple one. Is it a pure electric car for you or a plug-in hybrid? Either what you own now, what you will buy, and tell us why as well if you can. Had loads of responses as well to this, so I'm getting so many I can't read them all out on the podcast because we'll be here all day. So I figure the public ones, the ones on YouTube, the ones that you can see, if you want to go on YouTube or Facebook and read other people's replies, you can do that if you want to. I will go through as many of the emails that get sent to me, and also from the feedback form at evnewsdaily.com. This is from Andrew Jacobs. Andrew says this: the trouble with hybrids is that you're not getting the two big advantages of getting rid of ice: cheap maintenance and reliability. A fossil has over 2,000 moving parts, as opposed to a pure electric's 20 or so, with more to go wrong. It's a vote for pure electric. Hi to Bryce Hale, who says, in 2013 I chose the Chevy Volt because I drive between 40 and 120 miles a day. We chose the Volt over the last 90,000 miles because we were able to do 67% electric travel. One day I will get an electric car over 250 miles. So there, a Volt for a hybrid. Hi to Jack Oakley, who says, the question has held up my EV purchase for close to a year. I was concerned about range anxiety. I decided on full EV, BMW i3. Level 2 charger at home. My work has a free level 2 charger, and with more DC fast charging coming online every month, I'm less concerned. So, he says, although either purchase goes towards a greener world, hybrids are a stepping stone, but for him, pure battery electric vehicle. Any of these ringing a bell with you? Maybe some of these are kind of coming home to you, some of the decisions these people made. Hello to Bob Cook. I drive a plug-in hybrid for the following reasons. Tesla, too many issues, parts availability, price, service distance. I get that, right? The nearest Tesla service centre to me is a long, long way away. And there's a bazillion of them in London, but I'm 2 hours away and about an hour and a half from somewhere called Bristol, which is the next nearest one. So if I owned a Tesla and it went wrong, that is an inconvenience. He says that available EVs, even Tesla, don't yet offer the features that he wants. So for him, he's retired, by the way, with a 42-foot motorhome for big trips. But anyway, Bob Cook says for him, it can't be a full battery electric just yet. Hello to Daz. All right, Dazza, my friend Darren Sant. Quite simply, for me, he says, it's a matter of smoothness of drive. Pure electric all the way. Hello to Kent. Kent says, no question, it's another vote for pure electric. Even my mother-in-law, who bought a plug-in hybrid, now wants to move to pure electric. Hello, Carl. Carl Kramer says, I bought a used Chevy Volt 3 years ago. At the time, all the pure EVs were out of my price range. I anticipate when I'm ready, I will buy a pure EV. So there's kind of a 50-50 split vote there. Hello to Mr. Smith, who is the Sterlinator. I don't know his first name, but there you go. Thank you very much for your email, Mr. Smith / the Sterlinator, who was, by the way, my 88th patron supporter of this podcast. He says, I haven't bought an EV yet. This week's question has been the root of all my struggles these past few months. My commute is 25 miles each way, with a station provided at work, but the 4 chargers are getting crowded with Model 3s now. Not a bad thing. They are being used. The worst thing is to see an underused charger. It's my bugbear. They're implementing a plug-sharing program soon to give people as many turns as possible. I was about to pull the trigger on a 2011 Leaf, but the range on a bad day now down to 35 miles on a charge. I guess that's what, super early Leaf with battery deg if it's cold? 35 miles still sounds low to me, but I'll take your word for that. He says now he's looking at a Chevy Volt. The dilemma, though, he doesn't want to spend more than $10,000 for a daily driver just to get to work and back, and he's really waiting for 150 mile plus EV boom. You're right, they're coming, and they are gonna be cheaper. Thank you very much as well for your tip about money saving with the scrappage scheme and my wife's new Zoe. We didn't do scrappage in the end. We went for, because that was only applicable to new cars, by the way, we went for a used one. If you want, I'll give you the details at the end of this podcast. Right, onwards. Hello to Dana O'Dana Pearson. Follow him on Twitter a lot, and says a 2015 Leaf, a vote for pure battery electric vehicle. Seriously considered a Prius Prime, he says, but the Leaf's quicker acceleration at the third of a price and no more gas, well, deal done. Thank you very much for yours. Mark Richards, who emailed me directly at hello@evnewsdaily.com. Bought their first electric in May, a used 2015 Volt. Used to have a lot of range anxiety. Didn't think that pure electric would work for him, so liked the idea of the range extender, going for a hybrid. Boy, was he wrong. He says 90% of the time, the 40-mile range is sufficient for us in the Generation 1 Volt. If it was 60 miles, it would be more like 99% of all journeys. I'm seriously thinking about buying a Bolt with a B this fall. The Volt is my wife's car. I've started a new job with about a 100-mile round trip, so the big range on the Bolts would be perfect. Hello to Andy Hall. Thank you very much for dropping by, Andy, and emailing me at hello@evnewsdaily.com. We have a 30 kilowatt hour Soul that I've been running since July. It covers my 70-mile round trip to Manchester from where we live in West Yorkshire, and most of the time it gets charged using the charger car posts at work. My wife commutes 30 miles round trip into Leeds and will be doing it in a Nero plug-in. So he's gone full electric and she has gone plug-in. We'll split the vote on that one. Oh, I'm not keeping a tally, by the way. Are you keeping a tally of which one it is? Pure electric or hybrid? I should have done that. Oh! Hello to David Nye. G'day, Martin says. David from Brisbane in Australia, where it's heading towards their winter right now. It'll get really cold, probably like 20 degrees or something. The answer, he says, is a plug-in, a Mitsubishi Outlander for him. Hopefully, though, he says in the future, a Model 3. But we'll mark you down for a plug-in for now. Tony Bullock has emailed emailed me to say it's a difficult one as it depends on what kind of car you need for the affordability. I know what you mean as well. He said, we were keen on the Kia Sportage, and it bought into the idea that hybrids might be a stepping stone. It's what I always say as well. It's a kind of gateway drug to pure electrics. He says, but when he started to look into the prices and found the Nero plug-in, he realised that even with a limited range, would do all of his commuting on electric, and it was the right size. Then he discovered what is now the e-Nero. We used to call it the Nero EV. And he had to get rid of his old diesel before he could wait another 9 months or so for the e-Nero. So for now, it's a plug-in hybrid gets his votes. Hello to Max Gordy. Thank you very much. Max Gordy. Mark Gordy. I know his name is Mark as well, because I know him. And we chat, and my brain had a sudden fade there. Hello, Martin. I totally understand why people prefer plug-in hybrids. I would always vote for a full battery electric vehicle because of not having all the usual fossil gubbins on the car. Good use of the word gubbins. Is that a British thing? Has anyone else around the world heard that word? All the gubbins in the engine. Hello to Pierre, who dropped by the website, evnewsdaily.com. Well, I say website, it's a WordPress blog. That is the limit of my technical ability. But it keeps us going. And Pierre Ukello says, for his question of the week answer, full EV is his. He wanted to reap all the benefits of full EV being a lower cost and no drawbacks with maintenance and additional weight of a fossil engine. He says even when they go to their parents or the in-laws, which is 250 miles away, with the two girls who are 13 and 15, they stop for a break of half an hour. No time penalty there, because you would be stopping anyway for comfort breaks. He says it's great to have an EV news outlet with a world view. Congratulations on your podcast. Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate that. All right, a few more to go. Kyle Hodgson. I think these are, by the way, but the way that I've done it this week, I think this is the order they came in. So we're starting with last Sunday. If you're wondering what order these get read out in, I do them chronologically, because as I get your email and I read it and reply to it, and then I stash it. So this is the order they came in through the week. For Kyle Hodgson, it's pure electric, and the reason, no fossil to maintain. He has a Kia Soul EV. Was initially worried about the range, but it hasn't been a problem in Southern Ontario. Hello to Mark Garnett. Always love to get your comments. He says, question of the week, it's EV or bust. I love it. He says plug-in hybrids were the gateway drug 5 years ago. I'm sorry, I'm so 5 years ago, Mark. He says, but the only real benefit is a company car tax dodge, and many such drivers never really plug in, and they're completely pointless. Anyone who researches the topic quickly realises hybrids are a delaying tactic. So he's not pulling any punches there. Thank you very much for your comment this week to say that plug-in hybrids are pointless. Hello to Cesar! Cesar Trujillo, who is another person that supports us on Patreon very kindly. Hi, Martin. A pure battery electric, please. I would only use a plug-in hybrid if I knew the gasoline system were super efficient, light, could recharge the battery and not drive the system. I don't want big losses in efficiencies from hills. That's a really good point. I don't want a drive system that's a range extender that needs lots of maintenance. Also a good point. And a novel idea, make it removable so you only install it in long trips. Wow, that is a bit of a kind of mind blown, that kind of thing. Something closer to 100 miles per charge minimum, and he would consider it. I need to look at the maintenance schedule for the BMW i3 Rex. If my Volvo dies before the Model 3 short range or Model Y come out, I will lean towards a Rex of some kind, because Tesla superchargers aren't compatible with other EVs. But Elon Musk said they weren't compatible with current other EVs. What about the future? The I-Pace, Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes, have they got good enough chargers to make them compatible? Thank you very much to Cesar for joining in with that. Simon Yap sent me an email. This was 2 days ago on Friday. He says it's simple. Battery electric vehicle gets his vote. 90% of people do 60 miles in a day, and charging is becoming easier to find. He has a 24 kilowatt hour Leaf, bought second-hand for 8,000, and it works fine for him. Simon in East Sussex, thank you very much. Right, 4 more. Here we go. Mike Merwin, your question of the week got me thinking about whether it's a pure EV or a plug-in hybrid. Well, the money to purchase a Chevy Bolt EV, it's on order, but it hasn't arrived yet. He says it wasn't cheap. I could have gotten a nice fossil car for less money. The range was important. Wouldn't have bought it if I couldn't do my weekly commute, my long weekly commute. He says, so what was it that persuaded me to such an expensive vehicle? The driving experience for him. So a vote there for pure battery electric vehicle. Hello to Glenn Mason. I think I know where this is going because I know Glenn quite well now after being chatting for quite a few months online. Plug-in hybrid or pure EV? I plan to buy a hybrid, he says, with a petrol engine used for longer journeys. However, the Hyundai Kona Electric's range made it possible for me to replace my ICE car. Is range a concern? He says, well, it's down to the individual's use case. Home charging and well-placed rapids are enough for most. Not enough selection at the moment, though, and that'll change in the next few years. So another vote for battery electric. Right, 2 more to go. Let's see which way these goes. Hello to Roger Bradley. His votes: pure EV. Less complexity than hybrids, which always involve compromises, and more weight not utilised at full capacity, says Roger. And the final one is Kathik, and this email literally dropped in only a few moments ago. Kathik is a fellow EV owner in India, and he bought the E20 Plus. I don't know that one. It's an EV available at the moment in India. He says the price is about $10,000 US, has an 11 kilowatt hour battery for a 90 kilometre range as a pure EV. I'm going to go and Google that one right now. It does his daily commute, he says, and only charges the car every alternate day, even with a very small battery. The 11 kilowatt hour battery is more than enough for my needs, he says. Why carry more battery around than you really need? Wow, that was brilliant today. Thank you so much. There was 23 emails there, and I reckon there was more on YouTube and Facebook if you want to go and have a look at the public ones. Thank you very much for emailing me, hello@evnewsdaily.com. Are you ready? A brand new question of the week set by the team at myev.com. Here it is. What incentives are available where you live in the world? Which ones have you taken advantage of? Which incentives, if any, are the most worthwhile at a local or national level? So tell us what incentives are available where you live and which ones have you taken advantage of? Maybe discount off a car, tax incentives, help putting a charger in, or something else. Let me know. Well, it was only a few weeks ago that I was thanking the first fantastic 50 patrons of the show, and I joked that when I reached the heroic 100, I'd have to put some sort of list online thanking everybody, all 100. Well, I won't go into it now, but if you're interested, by the way, I'm so close to a couple of really big milestones on Patreon. Considering I launched this in August, it's just words aren't enough to say thank you. And I thought like 5 people would support the podcast. So it's enormously humbling as well to think that you're actually signing up, putting your card details in, and every month supporting this in a very small way. And not that small, actually, in some cases. I call it the posh coffee level at $5 and the super posh coffee level at $10 a month. Is what you'd spend if you just want a quick refreshment. Well, by not having that, you get to support a daily podcast, and thank you so much to 2 new people today who have joined up and are heading towards those big milestones. But I'll let you go and have a look if you're interested at patreon.com/evnewsdaily. Thank you very much to the every patron of this show. I will just say hello to Phil Roberts from Electric Future, who is the premium partner of this show. Hello to Cesar Trujillo, who we talked about, David Allen and Sasha Pallenberg, all partners of the show, and the executive producers who keep us going. Ashley Hill, Arid Gera Skalsvin, our newest patron, who I'm sure I've butchered your name. Hello to Bjard Fuchstak, Chris Benson, Chris Hopkins, Darren Bird, David Partington, David Prescott, Damien Davis, John Bailey, John H. Mayer III, John Timmis, Kevin Mayerson, Louis Hopkin, Marcel Lohman, Marcel Ward, Martin Croft, Matthew Ellis, Matthew Gruby, Neil E. Roberts, Paul Seeger Smith, Philippe Calvé, Rod James, Scott Callahan, and the Limousine Line, Sydney, all executive producers, helping to fund 257 previous episodes. They're online for free on the usual places you get podcasts and the blog evnewsdaily.com. Check out the socials. In the meantime, have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow.